Extracts from the book Believe It, Do It by David Late, published by Shieldcrest Publishing in 2016 for the recommended retail price of £12. This book is currently being sold for just £5, with all of the proceeds going to the national charity Dreams Come True, who make the dreams come true for seriously ill and terminally ill children. You can significantly enhance your life, increase your happiness and make your dreams come true, no matter your age, education or present circumstance. If you open this book and open your mind, you may just be surprised by what you will find, because sometimes just a few words can lead to dramatic changes. Can this book help you? Open up and see. Good luck. Chapter 11, Fear. Fear is only temporary. Regret lasts forever. Don't let your fears decide your fate, and beware of fear, because fear is a dream killer. When you open the door to fear when it comes knocking, more often than not you will find nobody there. Fear exists only in your mind. Fear is a figment of your imagination, a misuse of your imagination. Fear will stop you dead in your tracks if you let it. Fear is a bully. It will intimidate you, worry you, and it will wear you down. But if you stand up to fear, if you confront fear, as with any bully, it will back down. But, the word but is a killer, a dream killer. But will keep you down, but will extinguish the fire in your belly, but will keep you in the corner and stop you getting up for the fight. Banish the word but from your vocabulary. Fear of failure is the most common fear. Understand this. Failure is definitely an option, a high probability. Nothing great has ever been achieved without fear. Nothing. Failing does not make you a failure. Fail forward. When you fail, you don't start off from the same point. You start off nearer to your goal. Decide that you want it more than you are afraid of it. Meet your fears with faith. Some fear is good. For example, fear of heights or fear of getting hurt. When the body or mind feels threatened, the body and the mind take on a defensive stance. The mind decides one of two strategies: to stand ground and fight, to face up to the threat, or to run and to distance oneself as far away as possible and as quickly as possible from the threat. And this is known as the fight or flight syndrome. Nature developed and instilled this syndrome in human beings for their protection during the hunter-gatherer period, to enable the ability to run from a threat or to give the courage to stand into fight when required. When the body feels threatened or has to fight, adrenaline pumps through the body, the senses heighten, energy surges into muscles, making ready to fend off, run from or deal with the threat. During the hunter-gatherer period, this syndrome and reaction, it served well. It enabled human beings to survive and to develop into what they have become today. The response to the threat and the emotional and physical response was entirely healthy, and whether one decided to fight or flight, it served to dissipate the energy created in the body by the surge of adrenaline, so one was ready, fit and able to get through another day. The fight or flight syndrome is inherent in all of us. How we use it in this complicated world in which we live today has a huge impact on how successfully we deal with the situations or challenges that come our way. Back in the hunter-gatherer period, life was basic, and basic made things simple. A threat or challenge was clear-cut, and one responded accordingly, and the world moved on. Simple and straightforward. One either survived and moved forward, or one perished. Today's world is more complex. The threats or challenges that come our way are ever more complex. Some are very real, some not so. Whether real or not, the body reacts in the same way. We decide to fight or to flee. The body responds in the same way as it did way back in the hunter-gatherer period. Adrenaline pumps through the body, the senses heighten, energy surges into muscles, making ready to fend off, run from, or to deal with the threat. Most often, the threat or challenge is perceived. It is not real, and often the average human falls into a state that psychologists call rumination. That is, going over and over and over a perceived threat or challenge, and to no avail, to no conclusion, even if it is not real. The issue with this scenario is that the body continues to go through the fight or flight syndrome again and again and keeps responding accordingly. And this can result in stresses building up in the mind and body. And this often leads to a host of emotional and physical problems. And this can lead to serious short-term or long-term damage. And there lies the problem with living in today's world. Many of the fears that present themselves are not real. They are merely an illusion. They are smoke and mirrors, presenting themselves as high-ranking, important threats, resulting in the body repeatedly going through the fight and flight syndrome and leading to the associated reactions. Fear of failure is the most common fear, and there are many, many ways to fail. Failure takes on many faces. The fear of failing, even at the smallest of challenges, can result in the greatest pain. People fear the outcome of failure more than the act of actually failing. Fear of embarrassment, fear of being found out, fear of humiliation, fear of rejection, fear of having to start again, fear of losing financial security. People also fear their infallibility, the fact that they may screw up, that they might lose their nerve, that they might dry up, that their memory may let them down. People also fear success, that they may pass the test, that they may measure up to the opportunity, that they may get the chance to rise to the challenge to prove themselves. Fear can be a continuous circle where one is damned if one does and one is damned if one doesn't, and the result is the same. Fear caused by fear of failing or fear of succeeding results in the same behavioural and emotional outcomes. Fear is often a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fear of failing can lead to the loss of confidence, negative thoughts and negative behaviours, and this can lead to the very failure that one is so fearful of. Fear is a myth. Fear is not real. The world has lost the benefit of many things to fear. It's lost great ideas, great inventions, great leaders, great speeches because fear got in the way. Fear takes hold of people. Fear holds people back. Fear robs people of their optimism, their belief. Fear takes the fight out of people. Fear replaces hope with despair. Fear keeps people down. It prevents people getting up and taking on the challenge to move forward and to find success. As the old saying goes, there is nothing to fear but fear itself. When fear shows its ugly face, when it is confronted, when it is stared down, it often disappears. It runs and hides. Conquering one's fears is the single most important fight one can win. Overcoming self-doubt, shutting up the negative voices that comes into one's head. The biggest enemy that one has to deal with is oneself. Digging deep and finding one's courage is the single biggest factor that will lead to success. When one conquers one's own fear, a sense of freedom will be experienced, a sense of purpose will develop, positivity will grow and manifest itself, power and energy will increase. Failure most often is a major part of success. Behind any achievement one will find failure. Failure is the building block or blocks to success, and very often one has to fail before one succeeds. Take riding a bike for example. Take yourself back to the day that you learnt for the first time to ride a bike without stabilisers. Most probably you had someone with you giving encouragement, and you were in a safe place, your garden or a field, and the person with you gave you positive instruction and lots of positive encouragement. They held onto the back of the seat as you set off. As you pedalled away, they let go of the seat. What happened next? You fell off. And what happened next? You were helped up. You were given a positive talk. You were given a can-do attitude. You repeated the exercise again and again until the magic happened. The magic moment happened when you learnt the art of balance. When learning how to ride a bike, what represents total failure? Falling off. What represents total success? Learning balance and staying on the bike. The point is that you had to experience total failure in order to succeed. You had to go through the process of failing in order to learn the art of balance. No one can teach you balance. It's something that you have to learn from within. Remember this. The act of failing does not make one a failure. What makes one a failure is how one deals and views that failure. Your mentality determines if you become a failure. If you choose to get down in despondence when failure happens, if you decide to let negativity and depression be the legacy of the failure, then it will be, and you will become and live the life of a failure. As opposed to minimising the failure, as opposed to viewing it as a necessary stepping stone that will take you down the road to success. If you rise above the failure, if you learn from it, and if you take and use the experience of failing, then it will take you forward and with increased strength and power. When one fails, one does not start again from the same position. When one fails, one starts off again nearer to the goal. It is absolutely vitally important that when one fails and falls, that when you fail and fall, you fail forward. Don't fail backwards, because that is where you will end up if you do. You will end up at the point where you began, or worse, further back from the point where you started. When you fall, make sure that you get back up again and again and again. If you do, life will respect you for it. Life will decide to help and support you, and life will send help and assistance to you. Here is a true story. My son Matthew needed to pass his driving theory test to enable him to go on to take his full driving test. He was reluctant to apply for the test because he was scared to in case he failed. After some persuasion, he applied and got an appointment. His fear led to a negative outlook, which led to an apathetic approach to the test. He did little revision, and this resulted in him failing the test by just a few points. He was reluctant to take it again in case he failed. Fear was getting the better of him. He took a retest and failed again, then another and failed again. The thing was, each time he failed, he didn't start from the same beginning again. He still had the knowledge and experience that he had already gained. So each time he went for the test, he started nearer to his goal, which was to pass his test. And he finally did pass his test. Destiny had decreed that he needed to take his theory test 4 times before he would pass it. So each failure that he experienced was a stepping stone to the success that he wanted. He had to fail 3 times before he would finally succeed. He had to fail forward. If he had given up on his dream at any of these stages, if he had let negativity get hold of him, if he had listened to the doubting voices that entered his head, he would have eventually failed giving up on his dream. By keeping positive, by keeping faith, by not giving up, by realising that failing the test did not mean he ultimately was a failure, he finally passed his test. The thing is, when he went on to take his driving test, when he was asked if he had proof of passing a theory test, all that was reviewed was the certificate that said he had passed. No one was interested or inquired how many times the test had been failed before the test had been passed. Here is another true story. One summer's day, when sitting at a table with my family in a pub garden full of people, sitting at the bottom of a slope that led from the pub to the garden, I witnessed a large girl about the age of 12 race down the slope with lots of other children. As she ran down to the bottom of the slope, she tripped over her own feet. She went sprawling, falling spectacularly to the floor. She appeared to fall very badly, and I and others watching the incident winced with horror and expected drama to ensue. But in the face of humiliation, in face of the humiliation of falling, in the face of the embarrassment of failing, in the face of many spectators, she just jumped up, shouted out loudly, "I meant to do that," and ran off. What an attitude! Respect instantly replaced humiliation. Embarrassment never got a look in. A fall didn't stop the game. Me, you and everybody need to take a leaf out of that 12-year-old's book. Meet failing head on. Meet falling down in life head on. Do not dwell on it. Just get up, dust yourself down, shout out, "I knew that was going to happen," and then get on with it. Don't lose focus. Keep yourself in the game. You choose. Faith or fear. It is your choice. Advice from the author, David Late. Expect failure in your life. View failure as a necessary step in the process of finding success. Step forward into your failure. Take the learning and experience from it and move forward. Remember at all times that the act of failing does not make you a failure. When you fall off a horse, the best advice is get back up on one straight away before you lose your nerve. It is the same in life in general. When you fall off the horse of life, it is imperative that you get back up straight away before you lose your nerve. And remember, everything that you want is on the other side of your fear.